Welcome back to the board, coming back in. We actually started the meeting at 5 o'clock, so we could go into executive session. So the only thing pertinent I think that we've really done is approve the agenda, and we did pledge the flag. So at this point, we're moving back into the agenda, and I need a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting on August 15th.
We need a motion to exit executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
That was a first by
And
Mr.
Combs,
Chestnut.
second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan? Yes. Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so now we need a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting held last Tuesday, August 15th in this room.
So moved.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we're going to move into Board of Education business. First item on the agenda is discussion of board council.
So I requested this to be on the agenda. I've brought it up a couple other meetings, the organizational meeting in January and a couple others, but we've had the same council for, I think we established over 20 years. We established when Mr. Ray was here, and I think it's just pertinent and for us to take a look at that and see if the decision from 20 years ago is still the best decision for now. So I'm not sure what all that involves, interviewing other attorneys, looking into whatever, but I would just like to recommend, and I'm not sure how we go about agreeing or disagreeing to look into that, to looking into evaluating our council.
I
Okay.
concur. It's not an official vote. I don't know, but, yeah.
It is discussion. And I think after 20 years, that it's not necessarily, to be clear, a reflection that our council is horrible or our council is anything other than good, great, or the best. I just think that it's prudent for the board after 20 years to take a look at and do a bit of an evaluation. We, and we'll be voting on this tonight, we evaluate and review our superintendent and our treasurer every year as a board. I think it's prudent to do something similar with a position that's so important like our legal counsel. I think that's what Ms. Nolan is, just simply making sure that our public is aware that we've talked about it a few times, and I think we're just going to try to act on that a little bit more than just the words, and just keep everybody informed.
And I think if we decide to interview counsel, that would be something done in executive session. Nothing would be voted on, but just so this discussion
know.
is public,
Is that right?
so that we
Executive
can
session.
then move into evaluating that. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm on board with all of that. I think that this is definitely something we've brought up before, and Ms. Nolan and I have talked about it as well. And I think just with looking at things like cost and everything, since we're very aware that we have a levy coming on the ballot, and right now we have a history with Ennis and Britton, I would be in favor of looking at new council more towards after the levy and closer to the beginning of the year, just so we can close out the year with Ennis and Britton, and then make a concentrated effort. I know we talk about it every year, but actually make a concentrated effort to get into this review process and maybe look at some new council.
Yeah.
And just to note, we don't have a contract with anyone. It's all at-will agreements. So we theoretically could make any decision at any time.
It's true.
But
And I guess my comment is, we may do nothing. We may just freshen up by swapping off council that are inside of their current law firm, or we may go somewhere else. And I don't have any problem with reviewing this. I'm not exactly sure what the process would look like.
I think we would just decide on who we want to interview and start there.
This wouldn't be an RFP process of some sort?
You don't have to do an RFP. You would likely call a special meeting, go into executive session, interview. It could be over a period of several meetings that you do that. And then if it were to be at the beginning of the year, you always take action at the organizational meeting to basically say who the district council is. So you would take action at that point. If it was before that, you would just vote on it in the meeting, regular meeting.
It fits neatly into the organizational meeting, however, we can do it at any time in between contracts. So, I do hear the continuity that Ms. Mason talked about as we lead into the end of the year. That would not keep us from maybe doing some research prior to. So
Absolutely.
I think that Mrs. Nolan bringing this up is really just to let the public know that we haven't forgotten about this. Unfortunately, we haven't taken any action on it either. So trying to dust this initiative off and just let you guys know we're going to dig back into this and try to evaluate future council. Yeah?
And I do think it's important that the people, firms, whoever we talk to have experience with school, because there are 1,001 types of lawyers.
Yeah.
And I think our
And-
needs
and the
are
only-
specific for school.
The
but-
only other comment that I have is it will be, even if the price is the same from per hour, it will be more expensive trying to bring these people up to speed on all the ins and outs of Milford, if that's
There will be a one-time.
the correct
one-time
term. Yeah, there's gonna be a one-time charge of trying to get them up to speed on negotiations and a wide variety of things.
Actually, since you bring up negotiations, that would fall under this review of council. I think in our policy, the board has the ability to create a negotiation team, which in my 18 months here, I've never heard of us actually having a negotiation team other than from within the district, but we do have the opportunity, if we want to look at an external negotiator. So I think that's something we should also consider.
Well,
just
that's
on the-
relevant
on
when
the
we,
table
when
of-
we have contracts are up and the contracts haven't been up. in
Right,
this time.
so
Yeah,
I
we-
just think
we
that
haven't-
under the purview of council, we could also evaluate negotiating team per our policy.
Last time we had negotiations that just invited, Nancy was here and just invited people to participate in. It was a little more ad hoc. We put it together, inviting board members if they would like. Yeah. Yes, did you have a comment?
The negotiating team is led by council. John is in there, and typically the human resources person is in there. Sometimes superintendent is, but not always. But council definitely leads that process.
Okay, I think we're, as you would say, in violent agreement here, that we need to review this. Okay, any other comments before we move on?
My battery's toast.
Okay, now we're gonna bounce from the regular agenda over to the addendum. The first item on there is the amendment to the superintendent's contract. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
No.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to the second item on the addendum under Board of Education business, I need a motion to approve the amendment to the treasurer's contract.
So moved. Second?
Discussion?
I'll just say thank you for making such an impact in your first 6 months in role. That's what I'll say.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. This brings us to our first public commentary.
I have none.
Have none. Okay. Moving right along, this brings us to the treasurer's report, item D on our agenda. Mr. Johns,
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. I wanted to provide a financial update for you this evening. As we look at being 1 month through fiscal year '24, that's 8.33% through the fiscal year. We're looking at total expenditures are tracking a little bit higher than the analytics are showing, which is at about $185,694. This is due to salaries and benefits and other expenses. Really, this is just timing related in terms of when these things are paid out. I'm tracking basically down to the budgetary code every month. So as we start to get through the next couple months, these variances are going to hopefully get a lot smaller, but this is purely timing related at the time. Our revenues are actually over the expected revenues by about $9,665, and that's attributable to the state foundation payments. In the operating fund, we received $149,552.90 in interest, and you'll notice that the fiscal year to date equals that because we're only 1 month through the fiscal year. And then in the bond and certificate of participation fund, we're at $240,266.45. When you look at the individual funds and how much we've spent, we're below that 8.33%, except for in 2 areas, which are the miscellaneous federal grants, which is where the payout from the security, safety and security grant is coming from. It's really one-time money, so I'm not concerned about that being above that 8.33%, and also in the ESSER and ARPA ESSER areas in the 507 fund. Other than that, everything is well below that 8.33% in those funds. We also did have some variances when we looked at our purchase services for the good for the district, and I was able to dig into that. That was something that was brought up at the Finance Committee meeting. There was a coding change that is required by ODE on it's actually fiscal year '22 federal monies that we received, and that is actually crediting the general fund by about $34,000. So it's essentially money that had been spent from the general fund that we were able to actually reclaim from fiscal year '22. That's a good thing. There were also our spending in communication. The communication department is down, as well as professional services that are tied to curriculum instruction. So those are the areas that are making up that variance. In the month of August, we're still working on budgeting items, and the way I kind of explained this in the Finance Committee meeting was we're not so much increasing the fund appropriations, it's more so dialing in the individual budgets to have as close to a net zero effect as possible. So we're moving adjustments code to code. We're still working on new contracts as we are now into the 8-1 contracts that have just been paid out on 8/15, as well as our new teachers, new staff that will be paid at the end of this month for the first time. So we're still building those contracts in our payroll software. Also finishing up with state reporting from fiscal year '22. This is driven, there's a program called Maintenance of Effort, and so we have this period age financial. So if you can imagine, every single revenue and expenditure code is reported to the state, and then they verify that we're within our requirements for those funds. We are also, we had a very successful meeting last week with the administrative assistants in the district, where we went over new fiscal policies or brushed up on fiscal policies and some new procedures that we put in place. I'd also talked about the move to new financial software. We were hopeful we could do that between December and January. Unfortunately, the state is not going to be able to accommodate that because of a lot of work that would actually have to be done on the accounting side, not necessarily the payroll side. However, the good news is the initial estimate was that we would save $25,000, and it's actually going to be closer to $80,000 per year that we'll be able to save through going to that new software that everyone will like a lot better. So
But that's 2 years,
easier software, savings per year. So
2 years down the road.
it's actually going to be, as we close this fiscal year, we'll be able to go to it. So it'll be, we're in fiscal year '24 currently, so it'll be at the beginning of fiscal year '25 where we move to that software. You'll see later on in the agenda that we are I'm going to ask for your approval for a then and now. There are going to be several of those as we open next fiscal year because we're not able to have POs open from the software we're currently on into the next year. So I'll be briefing you on that as we get closer to that time. Any questions?
So, John, your last bullet point there about the financial software, you have implemented a couple change in our programs that have cut costs with how we used to do it prior to you arriving. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think maybe not so much cut costs, but brought in additional revenue. So same kind of effect, but this is actually going to be cost.
I thought there was I thought that there was a change that you had made recently in one of the modules that wasn't the overall financial software upgrade, but I thought there was one of the modules that you had mentioned in a committee.
That's actually wrapped up into that number, which is our time clock.
Okay,
So
that's wrapped
that-
up into that.
Yeah, we have to keep that time clock process and program through this fiscal year, and so we'll be changing as we go into next fiscal year.
So the time clock, much to your chagrin, has to wait another year.
Correct. Well, and all the other software too. So
We're still doing this.
it really just provides us the ability to have all workflows of all of all documents and all retention of documents in one place.
Any other comments? Need a motion to approve the treasurer's report as we just received?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Call roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Moving on into item 2, this is the appropriation resolution. We did see some increases that as I dialed in the federal funds here. That's going to be the major change with the appropriation resolution.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the fiscal year '24 appropriation resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Anything further? No?
No.
Okay, call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Moving on into D3, these are contracts for approval that are in excess of $25,000 or multi-year contracts. The first one is Amplify. The second one is St. Mark's Food Service, which is food service that we're actually providing for St. Mark's, so it's a revenue coming in. Same with the Thomas A. Wildy School, number 3. Claremont County Board of Developmental Disabilities, we have a student that would be placed there. And we have Hamilton County ESC, we have we have a student that will be placed at the Learning Center at North Norwood. We have Hunter Insurance Services and Excess Compensation Renewal, that's actually stop-loss insurance that we have. And then McGraw-Hill Wonders, you had approved the curriculum for Wonders. This is an addition to provide our intervention specialists with essentially the curriculum to be able to serve students as they're pulled out of class.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the fiscal year '24 contracts, the 7 that are listed and gone over here.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Quick comment. just to let everyone know, when you see a lot of these captured, and I say this regularly at board meetings, we've openly discussed all of these at committee meeting a week ago. So this entire board is typically showing up at all the committee meetings. We are assigned to 2 or 3 apiece, but most of us are at all of them, and it happens throughout the entire day, Thursday before. So I just wanted to let everyone know, we've discussed all these individually. The administration gives us a chance to ask questions. They provide answers, and it's been fantastic. That's one comment as you see us work through this. The second is, thank you very much for adding the dollar figures and the terms associated with all of these. I know we made that request last week or last month, and you've answered it with the agenda. So that really helps me, and I think it helps the public understand what each of these, what the financial implications all of these are. So that's my comment. Thank you for that, and just to let everyone know, we've discussed this.
I also want to point out that all these contracts are already within the budget that's established for the district. So
Yeah.
these aren't additional or above and beyond. These are part of the budget that's been established through collaborative budgeting with department managers and administrators.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. We have any other comments? Let's call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Item number 4 is a best point then and now. Then and now occurs when we have an invoice prior to the PO date. This one happened, we had actually asked departments to go and reach out to vendors to ensure that there weren't any invoices. This vendor said there were no more invoices. We started the new fiscal year, and lo and behold, there was an invoice for May. So this is procedural, that if it's over $3,000, we have to ask for your approval.
Okay, I need a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second?
Discussion? Call
These
the
are
roll.
surprises, by the way. These are surprises for us.
Yes.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Moving on into item 5, donations, we had a Milford Nutrition microwave was donated, valued at $70 by Jenna Reynolds. We had donation of fruits and vegetables from Mulberry Kroger. This is going to be essentially, I believe it's every day or every week, our food service department will go and essentially pick up fruits and vegetables from Kroger, and to be able to be used. We're not exactly sure what we're going to get. It's going to be kind of a mixed bag, but what we're going to do is essentially report back to you at the end of fiscal year '24 exactly the total of that donation. There's also $1,000 from MHS Student Council for T-shirts. And then there's $450 from MHS Class of 2008 for unpaid lunch fees and outstanding fee balances. I do want to address this kind of quickly. I did have a representative from the Class of 2008 reach out and ask what they could do to make the largest impact, and I did talk about some outstanding lunch fees, and you know, that kind of plays into our discussion from last month, and they graciously made this donation from their class. So just want to recognize all of these individuals.
You need a motion to approve the 4 donations as we have just heard.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just wanted to thank our nutrition services department, because I think this is a really innovative way to reach out, and this donation from Kroger is going to help us both with our nutritional needs, and also it will help Kroger not throw away and waste food. So I think it's really great that we're reaching out and looking at new ways to do processes.
And I talked to some of the food service people first day of school, and they're excited to have the opportunity to, in some cases, make salsa or something else for the kids. So it's a great thing.
Just thank you to all 4 that donated. This is fantastic. Thanks for steering Class of 2008 towards that unpaid balances. That was great. All of it's good. Thank you.
Hearing no other comments, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Number 6 is an MOU with MCEA. It was essentially discovered that there were some language, this is kind of a two-pronged approach, but there was some language in the MCA agreement that is essentially freezing some of our employees if they may have come in at, like, let's say an employee comes in and as a custodian, step 8. The language says that they would be step 8, step 9, and then sit at step 9 for 8 more years until they have 10 years in the school district, and then they could move to step 10. So essentially, that's what this MOU is removing the in Milford schools piece. It solves some other issues that we've had with the transition of some of our payroll and HR team members, but we think that this is the right thing to do to continue to attract staff members and to keep them here.
And this aligns the MCEA with the MEA, and we're now doing the same thing on both of them, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I need a motion to approve this MOU.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Number 7 are items for recycling and disposal. This is from St. Mark's. These are items that were purchased with auxiliary funds that they now plan to recycle as they are at the end of life. I did reach out, and they're not in any real condition. They're basically paperweights at this point, so they would be recycled.
I need a motion to approve these items for recycle or disposal.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Moving ahead, we're going on to the superintendent's business. Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. This evening, we do have a middle school update. Jeff's got some great pictures for us. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jeff Johnson.
So the last couple of weeks have been a flurry of activity. I know, I think some people wondered whether or not we'd be able to open on Tuesday, which is really funny because about a week and a half ago, our construction manager was thinking we didn't start until Wednesday. And we had a lot of rain, but what you see here is the rerouted Eagles Way. Obviously, our baseball field off to the right, the middle school kind of off to the left. But we were able to open that connector from the junior high to the high school at the end of the day last Friday. The other big one that we were able to accomplish at the last minute was to get the teachers' lot paved. Not only was this important so that our teachers had a place to park, and we had some plans if this didn't come together. It really helps with the flow of campus buses and everything else. So this actually was completed on Saturday, striped on Sunday. So when teachers came in on Monday, they did have a place to park.
That is no longer a through, right, Jim?
Excuse me?
That is no longer a through road there?
Yeah, it's through. I mean, you
gotta come down.
got to come down a little bit to by the cafeteria to hit that entrance to the new Eagles Way.
Circuitous.
What you're looking at here is the building pad for our new middle school. We have run into some undercuts, some wet soils. So what you kind of see over here on the left is they spread that soil out. It dries. They mix it with lime. Let it dry out, and then they're able to put it back on and reuse that soil so it's got a decent base to build a building on. Here is the field house. So you can see on the left is the concession stand. Those will be the public restrooms, an auxiliary visitor / junior high locker room. In between the two buildings will be the entrance into the stadium, And then to the right, obviously the big long area is going to be some basketball courts and wrestling area, and then some main locker room, coach's office, and a couple of, again, small auxiliary locker rooms. So those footers and everything are going in maybe tomorrow, but definitely by Monday you'll start seeing some steel go up in that area. And then we also, good and bad, the steel was set for the new scoreboard. Unfortunately, the scoreboard was delayed about a week. It is being delivered. It's being shipped this week. We will not have it for this weekend's football games. We've got a couple of temporary scoreboards that we'll be able to use this weekend, but that scoreboard should go up next week. And then what everybody's, the talk of the town for 6 months, other than Mount Milford or Mount Eagle or whatever everybody wants to call it, this is our former sinkhole. It was, the backfill was completed yesterday. They'll be seeding and strawing that area probably tomorrow, but our sinkhole is no more. So, been busy, but got school opened on time. Transportation's been great. So things have been busy, but things are good.
Can you talk about the permit that we got today?
We received this afternoon the shell permit for the middle school, which basically means we can do the underground plumbing, we can start putting in footers and foundations. We do have to get a notice to proceed from OFCC before that can start. It is not 100% complete permit, but it will allow us to start doing more than just moving a bunch of dirt and putting in underground utilities for the middle school. So that was great news, and it's been a lot of work trying to get that done.
So we will fast track that to OFCC. Does the board have a piece that they need to fulfill like the other one?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure. So there is a possibility we may be asking for a special board meeting to approve that GMP, so that we don't wait until September in order to make that happen. But I've got a message out to OFCC on whether or not that's going to be needed from us or whether or not it can wait till September, and we'll obviously let you guys know if that indeed is the case.
Okay.
Any other questions?
You're still feeling like we're on track, Jeff?
We don't have any days to lose, but yeah.
Okay. That was good news today. I didn't know about it until just now, so wow.
We got it probably around 4 o'clock today. So.
Right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to policy, second reading. We have 3 policies and 1 regulation for your approval this evening.
This is for approval?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
It says information, no?
Second reading of policy updates.
It just, I saw that as an information item.
It should be action.
It should be action. It should
Okay.
not say information. Second readings are action items.
Okay, can we make that
Mhm.
change
Yep.
somewhere along the line? But I have no problem in asking for a motion for these, the second reading of these policies.
Do we need to motion to change the agenda for that?
I think we do, don't we? To change that from information to action before we vote?
It's there. If somebody makes a motion to approve it, I feel comfortable with not amending the agenda. If you want to amend the agenda just to feel better, that's fine too, but I don't think you need to.
I motion to approve.
Discussion? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to Human Resources Business, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. We do have 4 items this evening for your approval under certified, exempt, classified, and supplemental. Asking for your approval of those items. Happy to discuss any as needed.
Including the amended.
Yes, correct. That
Yes.
would be correct. The addendum is included in that.
Okay, so let me catch up here with you.
Yes,
We've
sir.
got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different items. Are we
There are
gonna
four-
handle, are we
yep.
gonna handle the ones on the addendum separately?
The ones on the addendum are, once you approve the addendum, they're slid into each of those items.
Okay, so those fit into their categories, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve items 1 through 4 on the human resources business
And the addendum.
and the addendum.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Once again, there are about 100 items across 4 pages here. And to be clear, we had an opportunity as a board to go through every one of these line by line in personnel a week ago today. And any that we had questions, the administration answered those questions, and I just wanted to let everyone know that I use this word lovingly, but we look like bobbleheads when we say yes to 100 items. But we've had an opportunity to review this, so when this goes to vote, just know that we're approving a lot or saying no to a lot, wherever the vote lies. But there's just a lot here, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, there is another pile. I mean, we have about this much almost every month, especially in the spring and on into the summer. Just to, maybe educate a little bit here. All of these items are brought forth from the administration and the superintendent for us to vote on. This is not something that we add to the list. This is a list that's presented to us with the explanations for them. So just wanted to make sure that we're all clear on that. So these are brought forth by Ms. Berkeley and Mr. Spicer in some cases, so. Do I have a motion already?
A motion and a second.
Any other discussion?
I'm just gonna make a quick comment on all of this personnel. It's probably no surprise that the past couple weeks has been kind of tumultuous as far as the board is concerned with personnel issues. And I would just like to make a request as a board member going forward. We've talked about this, that we do make our decisions when we vote based on information that we receive from the administration. And I think it's just really important that we get full information on all of the things. And I know a situation arose this time where, I know, John, you said there were some things in committee meeting that couldn't be discussed because of confidentiality. So I would just like to ask going forward that if there are things that can't be discussed in those, like, if they could be conveyed in another way that maintains that confidentiality but still fully informs us of what we're voting on, that would be helpful for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Personally. Any other comments? Just call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to business operations, once again, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. Actually, we're under curriculum and instruction.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
It's
looking at
okay.
the wrong list. Curriculum
I
and
thought I heard you
instruction.
say business. I was reading curriculum at the same time.
Going down the wrong page, sorry.
It's okay. We have 2 items for your approval this evening. We have some handbook updates that involve Gaggle per request of the board. And we also have curriculum pay A through C.
Okay, I need a motion to approve items 1 and 2, both that is the handbook update and curriculum pay.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. We're now back to business operations and Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you once again, President Miranda, members of the board. We have 2 items under business operations inclusive of the addendum. The first one is transportation impractical, and also an easement that was discussed at the B&G committee. And Mr. Johnson is at the podium for questions, should you have them.
First, I believe we need a motion to approve.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Just
Jeff, do you have
standard-
something?
It's a standard Duke easement to bring in power into the stadium and mainly the stadium because we had to reroute it with the demolition of everything else we had to do. So it's pretty standard agreement.
We are voting on this as a standalone? Or did we
The easement,
have?
H1 and H2 are together. That was the motion
that-
in the second.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. This brings us to our second public participation. Do we have anyone that wants to speak?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Concluding items, we have open board discussion. Anyone wants to speak?
Welcome back to school. As a parent, I'm very glad everybody's back. Thank you, teachers and principals, for taking them.
I'll remind everyone to catch up on their fees, if you don't mind.
I think in general, we had a really, really good start for the week, so.
We've had a great start to the week. Our staff, no matter what they do, has really risen for us. Our staggered start, while it may not be convenient for many or some or whomever, has been exceptional for our staff. Every staff member that we've run into has really applauded it. It's really given them an opportunity to work on their PBIS and build relationships with kids.
Well, and that was a grassroots effort. That does not
It
come
is.
from the administration down. That came pushing it up.
It is, yes. It was requested, and I think there was also some hesitation by some, what that might look like, but I think overall we've had great positive feedback about a staggered start, and you should plan on the same thing for next year. We will do that again, so it's overwhelmingly, it's been great. Thank you to all of our parents. Dave, you might have it in your good news report about busing and putting kids on buses at the secondary campus has been, I think, very important. Those buses are packed, which is great, and the traffic flow has been exceptional as well for the first week of school. So
Yeah,
we're,
and back to the previous one, I'm losing my train of thought, I'm sorry. The spreading it out, separating of the kids so that.
Staggered start?
Staggered start, thank you, Jerry. That went all the way K through 8.
yes,
And I think that's it's the first year we've done it all the way up there.
yes,
Yeah.
all the way through, yeah.
So it was very quiet in the junior high the first day because there was only half the crowd
Only
there.
had half the crowd there.
Yeah.
It was great. We've had a great start, and it's everyone. It's not just one group or another, but it's literally everyone. It's the students, it's the families, it's everyone.
Okay.
Did he steal any of your thunder?
No, lots of it, but that's okay. I'm gonna thunder anyway. It'll just be quicker. Any other comments, members of the board? Okay, the much anticipated and dreaded at the same time good news report. As Emily said, school's open. Staggered starts went great. Traffic was reported to be better than expected. I tried to stay off campus because no one knew what to expect. And I think that's possibly, or probably due to some parents who would normally have dropped off their kids are now dropping them off at the bus stop and letting them come in that way. So I think that takes some of the load off. But I think we've worked out everything there. Convocation was a huge success. It was held last Monday, like 3 days ago, at Crossroads Eastside Church over in Eastgate. We had both the band and our theater group performing as part of that event. We had Todd Whitaker as a keynote speaker, and he is a guy with incredible amount of energy, and he did deliver a great message, and I think pretty much everyone that I talked to among the teachers took at least one thing away that they could use from his discussion. So, as Jeff said, construction continues. I guess the biggest message is just be patient with us as we go through this. It's a 2-year process. It will get better, but if you look at the end results, they are going to be amazing, and we're going to be very happy that we went through the pain of getting there. And the other one I had, Jeff stole my thunder, the sinkhole is gone. Now, as far as dates to remember, fall sports are up and running. Soccer, tennis, golf, water polo have already started competing. Cross country and volleyball are right behind them. First football game is Friday night. It is an away game. We were fortunate enough to get 3 away games to start the season, so that gives us a little bit more time to get organized here on campus, so that's a good thing. Our first home varsity game is September the 8th. That's 3 weeks from Friday. So it is against Anderson. We hope we have everybody out to visit with that. A couple other things. Band donation day is August the 19th. That is Saturday. So you can expect to see some band members out looking for help to defray the cost of what's going to be an excellent program. We got to hear a little bit of their music on Monday, and it is outstanding. I think the crowd's going to really love that. And finally, the Milford Theater production of Clue has sold out what we thought was going to be 4 performances. They're all gone. All the tickets are gone for that. So we have added 2 additional performances. It's going to run the 5th through the 9th, and yes, that's 5 days, but we're doing a matinee one day. So that's going to be exciting. It's off campus. It's in a mansion, and being Clue, there's candlesticks and libraries and all kinds of things in there. So that's going to be somewhat of an interactive performance. So we're looking forward to that in a couple of months. So that is all I have. So with that being said, I need a motion to
Nope.
Oh, excuse me. I have one more thing, a couple more items here. The next board meeting is, actually, it's a work session. It is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And the next regular board meeting is September 21st, which is 5 weeks out, I believe. Yeah. And that will be in this room, 1099 State Route 131, Milford, Ohio. And that will be at 6 o'clock. So I now need a motion to adjourn. Hearing no discussion, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Combs? Yes. Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you, everyone.